Hello and welcome you crazy people, my name is Jay and today I'm going to be looking at undercosted units and upgrades in Star Wars Legion. Now if at the end of this video you like it, do consider pressing the like button, and if you've not already subscribed then please do that, or as I like to say, sort your life out. But I'm just jesting with that of course. We are going to just go through some units, talk about if they're underpointed. I have already done an overpointed video, so you should try and check that out. I'll try and put a link up there, or you can just check my channel and find every one of my recent videos. And yeah, we'll just go through some stuff and see if you agree with me. I do think that the developers have done a really good job balancing in this game. And if anything, in some areas I am sort of nitpicking because the balance is actually mainly just that good, and when I came to look at underpointed and overpointed I didn't find that many examples, so do just keep that in mind. I've got Luke on here, right? I actually think Luke is probably okay, right? The reality of the situation, I just have Darth Vader on the overpointed stuff, and Luke, he was just so dominant I think for like the first half of this when the game came out. Obviously he was one of the main commanders that you could choose from, and the fact that at LVO he was still there in the top list sort of suggests that Luke is still very, very good. Is he overpointed? Underpointed? I don't know. I don't necessarily think so, but I think if he was maybe 165 or 170, I don't think anybody would necessarily complain. It would sort of make sense. I've put Force Push in there because I feel like Force Push is so versatile that it's almost an auto include when you take a character like Luke or Vader, and in that sense, auto includes to me, if they're auto-include, we need to look at why. Either something is overpointed or something is overpointed, because we would like to see a good mix of the two, or the several different options, if you know what I mean. And that definitely applies to the Rebel Troopers. Like, I have, in all my days, apart from maybe like in the first week, only ever seen one Rebel Trooper with the Ion, the Ion guy. It literally is either naked, which is okay, but primarily with the Z6 Trooper. It's just Z6 spam. And that's fine, I guess, but to me that then I have to question whether or not the Z6 itself is underpointed. I think maybe so. The combination of the Rebel Troopers with the Z6, that combination feels off if it's so ubiquitous, essentially. So maybe that you could make a case for Z6 going up in points. Now the caveat to that is, well, what happens if we get another core unit that is just as good? In which case I'd feel less bad. But for now, I feel like the Z6 you could definitely make a case for it being undercosted. You know, if that was 2, 4, or 2, 3, 4 points higher, would you ever complain? I'd still think I'd take it. So in that sense, I think it is undercosted, or only slightly, but you know. Recon Intel, I mean, it's so cheap that I feel weird putting it on this list, but it's such a good card, and the card was quite hard to find when it first came out, so it was a little bit awkward that it was so useful. I'm finding Recon Intel, if you've got the points, you might as well whack that in there. So again, if that was 3-4 points, would anybody complain? Maybe not. As I said, I realise I'm nitpicking and I'm giving like point examples, but keep in mind that I'm not the developer, so I don't really know. Now the sniper, this is a classic issue. We are seeing, basically, if you've got 40 odd points or you need to fill up activations, you throw in a sniper. And the Rebel Commando with the sniper, it's about 44 points, is it? For the Imperial one it is. I'm not sure how much this one is. I can't do that math in my head quickly enough. I think it's 44. They're so useful for 44 points. I don't necessarily think they're like massively game breaking, but they're so easy to throw into every list that if you're not running them, you have to have a good reason not to be running them. They're just so easy to throw in. Now, not every list runs them, but they are quite common, if perhaps a little bit too common. And I definitely think you could argue that maybe the sniper, not the two-man unit itself, but the sniper guy could possibly go up in points. That Pierce and the high velocity is pretty damn decent. Now, I actually think the Rebel one's not as good as the Imperial one. Well, that's almost a fact, just because it's 2 black dice versus a black and a white, but you've got to consider the platform that it's on. I think the Imperial one is better, so if anything was going to go up, I would put that up. I've just done this on the Rebel one because it was when it came into my mind. So it's too common, I think. It's too easy to throw in when you've got the points and when you need an activation. So that's why the sniper is there. And that's all, like, you know, you might argue duck and cover is too low. Any of these upgrades, you could argue that, and I don't necessarily want to get too much in specifics, but really, the Z6 and the sniper are so common in a lot of Rebel lists that I have to then start questioning whether or not they are underpointed. And it's essentially a similar story for the Imperials. So I've whacked in the DLT at for the Stormtroopers as the undercosted unit there, and I'm not actually convinced that this is that undercosted. I think maybe it's just one of the better options for the fact that it provides you like long range. 2 black dice is pretty consistent. I feel like you either have the short range snowtroopers, which we'll get onto in a moment, or you have these guys, and that makes sense. I just sort of feel like, you know, there's no reason to take anything else other than these if you want your consistent long range damage. They're also impact 1, which is going to be pretty versatile if ever you come against the vehicles and you've got 3 stormtroopers with DLT. Well, you can pretty much, I'm going to plonk a wound off that almost every turn. It's just so common and so, as I said, ubiquitous is a common phrase that I'm using, that I think you've got to possibly start questioning whether or not 24 points is the right number. I think the other unit of core troopers might break up the monotony there, and I sort of feel like it's not the DLT. In this case, it's probably the other weapon that you just got no reason to ever use, essentially. And the sniper, we just spoke about the sniper. I think the Imperial sniper is actually significantly more underpointed than the Rebel one. Now obviously you've got to consider the platform, how useful these activations are and stuff like that. It just always felt to me that 44-point activation that was this useful for the Imperials was perhaps a little bit too good overall, and in that sense I think that this is a little bit too low in points. It's just so useful and you can throw it in a lot of lists. Same thing for the Rebel one. And I've thrown in Boba Fett, right? I've put Boba Fett in this list, as you can see right there. Now, I'm only throwing in Boba Fett possibly when it comes to Sabine and maybe Bossk. It's not that I actually think Boba Fett is overpointed or undercosted. I think he's probably about right. He is, the thing that you do see him a lot on the table. You see him and Veers a lot on the table, and it's not really Veers that is doing the versatility work. Bubba essentially just like plugs so many gaps into an Imperial list, a little bit like the sniper did. He just fixed so many holes that his versatility shot him above everything else, and he was so useful. A little bit like Luke. In my mind, his speed and his like versatility like matched Luke and maybe possibly brought Luke down in value overall. And Bubba is probably about right, but you could make a case that he fits. He put a big giant plaster on the Imperial side where they really needed it, that you could almost argue that he's underpointed. But I actually think it's probably mostly okay. But I'm just whacking them in here so you can, you know, get the debate talking and we can talk about it in the comments. And the snowtroopers, right? I don't necessarily think the snowtroopers are that underpointed. When you look at that flamer, I think snowtroopers overall are actually okay. They have a big weakness in the sense that you have to get into range 1 to really bring out most of the damage. Steady does a long way to mitigate that, so they can do a move 1 and then a move 1 and then a shoot. That weakness allows you really to try and pick them off before they get there. You know they have to get into range 1 to do the damage. If you focus them down, you can really, like, you know, really hinder them. And I just think, like, when you look at the flamethrower, for 20 points it's pretty damn good, and you don't really see anything other than a flamethrower snowtrooper unit. But generally an Imperial list will be something like 3 DLTs and 2 snows. So it's not that, I don't necessarily think there's a massive problem here. I just feel like you could argue the case for it. What I do think, when you compare the frag grenades into the impact grenades and concussion grenades, I feel like the frag grenades might be undercosted a little bit, because all the grenades are 5 points, but the frag grenade is, to me, probably significantly the more versatile one and the significantly better one. And in that sense, it feels weird that they're all the same points. So that's it. That's literally all I wanted to talk about. There's probably some controversial ones in there, but not that I necessarily know what. As I said, I don't think Luke is massive. If he is undercosted, it's only by a small amount. And we're seeing other commanders now, and, you know, to take his place, he doesn't necessarily have to reign supreme for that rebel side. The Z6, it's hard to say for me to say it's the Z6 itself that's undercosted. It's just weird when you rock up to a tournament and a lot of people have 6 Z6s. Like, you then start questioning, is that an issue? Should we have some of the Ion Troopers a little bit more often? Should we have a little bit more versatility and variety? I think the answer is yes. Recon Intel, I just threw that in there because it's 2 points. It seems like I don't know, it's so good for 2 points that it's weird to not put it in, but if you start putting it like 10, nobody's going to use it, so I don't mind it. And the snipers, this applies to both the Rebel and the Imperial one. They are just so useful and such like gap fitters that for 44 points, especially the Imperial one, you could argue that it's too easy to get them in your list, therefore maybe, and they're too common perhaps, so maybe they are underpointed. Boba Fett's a difficult one because, as I said, he essentially just fixed a lot of what made the Imperials not that great. He came in and he sorted a lot of that out. But when you compare 140 to my 115 for Sabine, I think ultimately he probably is fine. He has a couple of weaknesses, as in the fact that, you know, you could charge him. He doesn't get all of his, if he doesn't get all of his shots off quickly, he can become pretty useless. He's quite hard to kill, but there you have it. And the Snow Trooper, I think the Snow and the Flames are okay because they have a counterplay. I just sort of whack them in there to sort of show the grenade. I think the frags are weird when you compare them to Impact and Concussion. I think they're slightly better. But what would you do? You'd change one grenade to 4 points and the other to 6? Like, you're talking minuscule point changes for a massive game. So I realise that this is a very nitpicky video, but I wanted to do it and just to spark a bit of debate, and that's what I've hopefully done. So let me know in the comments below if you agree with me. Do you think I missed something? Do you think there is something so underpointed that I should be on this list? If you say the Airspeeder, I'm going to come to your house and knock on your door and run away. Ding dong ditch. I don't know why I would be so childish, but you'd be wrong. No, I'm just kidding. But I would completely disagree with that, for example. So do like it in the comments. Happy to have a discussion with anything you think I've presented that's wrong, or something that I didn't present that you think should be on the list. Yeah, that's it. Have a beautiful day. I think like, subscribe, Patreon, thank you very much. And have a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful day. Goodbye.